What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers have their 15th roster spot, and a big question is who should the Lakers sign with that? Usually, when you're talking about free agent, buyout market, 15th roster spot, usually what you end up seeing happening is it's either a vet guy that's coming in just to kind of be a locker room guy, or it's a young guy who just hasn't worked out, and you're hoping that you can be the destination to where he's not going to play a ton, but maybe you could grow and develop him and turn him into something. Like think of like an RJ Hampton, right? Guy that got waived, but he's still young enough to where a team could build him, grow him, and maybe find a spot and an opportunity for him if he's willing to work hard. Very rarely do you get the Markieff Morris to the Lakers situation where you get this just solid in his prime type player that can come in, be a sizable wing that can guard multiple positions, that can hit the three ball, and actually be a key contributor to you winning a championship. It's very rare. Happens sometimes, but it's very rare. And so a name that I've seen thrown around a lot is Josh Jackson. Now, again, to me, he would be that project player, the guy that you're trying to build on, that you're trying to get to maybe be the spot that he turns it around, right? Like think of like a Stanley Johnson. Stanley Johnson was in Josh Jackson's shoes. He goes to the Lakers. He becomes a huge, like, kind of turnaround player. People are like, man, this guy's defense is good. This guy's hitting shots. Like, he's being pretty consistent. And he kind of got this little hype behind him. Now, granted, he ended up going to the Spurs. He ends up getting traded by the Lakers, goes to Spurs. He gets bought out. He hasn't found a team yet, but I could see him getting a spot. Unfortunately, the Lakers can't get him, so next best option could be a Josh Jackson. Again, 6'8", good size, still 25, 26 years old, 207, was that lottery pick that you hoped was going to be something. He was fourth overall pick. I went to a good school, was highly sought after, and just hasn't worked out, unfortunately, right? There's been questions about his work ethic. There's been questions about just his overall skill set and just his commitment at times. He's never really been a noticeable standout guy, unfortunately. He had a ton of promise, a ton of hope, a ton of hype, but he's been on like 6 teams, something like that, in the last 5 years. He's been on Phoenix, Memphis, Detroit, Sacramento, Toronto had him, and then they ended up letting him go. And so it's just kind of feeling like, okay, Josh Jackson, one, needs to find a home with stability, and two, can he find a place that can kind of use him to develop him and grow into a solid player and contributor. I'm not even saying he has to be some big star, right? Like, I'm not saying he even has to come in and just be anything special. Just can he come in and be just a solid contributor, right? So like the 2020-2021 year was arguably his best year. He gave you just under 13 and a half points. He played around 25 minutes per game. He didn't shoot great. Shot 42% from the field, 30% from three. But could he be a guy that you could get, maybe just play both forward spots, give him 15 to 20 minutes a game, and he give you 10 points, right? Can he give you something along the lines of like 10 and 4? Like if that could be something, like that's fine. Not every player on a basketball team has to be like some elite just player that's just turning into something special. I mean, look, if he can, that could be helpful, right? Like if he can, for whatever reason, just turn it around and figure out how to be just great, then perfect, by all means. But he's a guy that he's had a above average defensive rating. He doesn't have anything this year. He doesn't have stats period this year to really go off of, but he has a 113.5 defensive rating for last year, which is below or above league average, which league average is about 115. So he's a guy that can be a serviceable defender, solid defender. If he can be that sort of 3-and-D guy, problem is he doesn't really shoot the three ball well. But again, project guy, could come in. The Lakers are familiar with him. The Lakers worked him out. And that's what this image you see on the screen is. I just, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. Again, he's 26. So how much better can he get is kind of my thing. Now, if he can just get a serviceable 3-point shot, I'm not even talking about like elite. Can he get to league average from three? Because if he could just get to league average from three, then he's already an above average defender. If you can give me, 20, or 35% 3-point percentage, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now you're like a real value player, especially off the bench, right? Like if you're able to play elite defense, above average defense, and shoot league average from three, then now you're a 3-point shooter that teams need to be honest on because they can't just leave you wide open. But you're also going to be able to stop the other guy, and especially at his size, 6'8", with length. He's not my favorite, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, right? Like, I wouldn't hate it if they brought him in. I don't know if he plays at all this year. I don't even know if I would want him to play at all this year with as poor as he's been and him not really having any stats this year. But if he can kind of get in the lab and kind of do some work, it's just, he would have to make leaps and bounds from 3-point percentage. His best 3-point shooting year was the 2018-2019 season, and he only shot 32%. Last year, he shot, granted, it was only 1.5 attempts per game, but he shot 17% from three. Right? Like, he's a career 29% 3-point shooter. Like, that's the problem. He's got great size, a good defensive guy, but he's not good anywhere else. He can't really score the basketball. He's a guy that his best year, he gave you 13 points, and he only shot 45% from the field. It's not very good, for a guy that's only getting you 13 points per game. He shot, again, from 3-point range. He's shooting around, 30% that year? Again, it's not too great. I'm sorry, he shot 42%. Yeah, no, I said 42%. His best shooting year from the field was in 22 games with Memphis, where he had 17 minutes. He shot 44% from the field, but he shot 32% from three. So that is probably his best overall shooting percentage. Can he get to like 34, 35% from three? If he can, then I think he could have some real value on this Lakers team. Because, you already have Rui Hachimura. You already have Jared Vanderbilt. Even post LeBron, your front court's probably going to be Anthony Davis, Rui, and Jared Vanderbilt. So at that point, you're looking for guys that have size at 6'8" to be backups. Like, I don't see a scenario where Josh Jackson ever plays his way into the starting lineup. He's 26 and he already hasn't done anything unless he just has some crazy turnaround. If he, for whatever reason, doubles his 3-point shooting and keeps the defense, then maybe, right? Like, all of a sudden, if he goes to, if he wakes up one day and just becomes a 40% 3-point shooter, then yeah, maybe. Absolutely. He's 6'8", good size, athletic, could shoot the ball, right? Like, cool. Like, yeah, do that. But in reality, he's been in the league long enough. There's been questions. He's been on so many teams. There's a reason so many people are cutting him. He just doesn't really have it. And it almost comes down to, if you're going to go this route, do you just go the Mo Harkless route? Right? Mo Harkless shoots a better overall career 3-point percentage, has the same kind of defensive rating, but is a veteran who has a longer wingspan and size, right? That that's kind of my thing is like, if you're going to go Josh Jackson, you might as well go with Mo Harkless because at least you know what you're going to get with Mo Harkless, right? Like the problem with Josh Jackson is you don't know what you're going to get. Like if I was Josh Jackson, I would take the year off, work on my game, work on all my ins and outs, and then try to get on a team next year. Start trying to try out, right? Like just take the rest of this year in the summer to just work my tail off, working on my shot, working on my handles, working on just everything that I can work on. Primarily your shot, because I mean, the defense is there, the size is there, right? Like you can't teach size. So it's really his shooting and scoring. So if he can just work on that, focus on that, then I really do think that he could get a roster spot. And I do think a team like the Lakers would take a flyer on him. Lakers love those young, like, okay, like they're not great, but we have a good development team. Like, let's put them together. That is something, right? Granted, the Lakers never really seem to hold on to guys long enough to properly develop them. But again, like, can Josh Jackson be our Stanley Johnson? Right? Like it's not like Stanley Johnson was shooting great. I mean, Stanley Johnson shot 45% for the Spurs, but he wasn't doing that for us. He was shooting basically 32%, 33%, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. So it's not like Stanley Johnson came in and was just this like elite 3-point shooter, lockdown defender. No, it wasn't at all. But his defense was really good. That hustle, that motor, like that's what we need. So can Josh Jackson just come in and be a defensive guy even? That could help, right? Like kind of just be a spot guy, right? Like into the quarter, other team has the ball, we need a stop. We need you to go in. Or, do you bring him in as like just like solely a defensive guy and put scorers and shooters around him, right? Like, I mean, like Jared Vanderbilt isn't a great shooter or scorer, but he's just really good defensively, got a high motor, engine, just hustle guy. Can Josh Jackson come in and be that? Right? Like, it's not like Jared Vanderbilt's like this elite scorer and shooter. But I mean, he's also 23. There's a big difference between 23 and 26. But can Josh Jackson play that type of role? I come in, give me an assignment. That's the guy that my assignment is. I'm going to do my best to lock him down, make things difficult for him. Right? Like that doesn't hurt. Like it wouldn't hurt to have like a defensive 6'8" guy. Right? Like there's not really any 3 and D shooters. It's like you can get a 3-point shooter, or you can get like a sizable defensive wing. Like that's what Josh Jackson would probably be. You bring him in, be your Stanley Johnson. He's not going to, whatever offense you get from him is just bonus. You're bringing him in for like defensive assignments, right? Like we're playing the Suns. We need you to you and Vanderbilt's job is to guard Kevin Durant and just try to wear him down. Right? Like that's kind of what it would be. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? You like the idea of Josh Jackson? Do you not? Are you game for Josh Jackson? Are you not? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below.